It's been over a year since the Guinness NITROSURGE launched in the UK, so it's time for a long-term review. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I'm taking a look at the Guinness NITROSURGE once again to give it a proper long-term review. I did loads of videos on this thing when it first came out, and yes, I liked it, I was reasonably excited by it, but let's be honest, toys like this are all fun and games through the first month or so, but are they really worth the long-term investment? Now, I should point out it's not really a long-term investment, or at least not a massive one. It's not massively expensive. When I bought mine, it was 20-25 quid for the device itself, but the cans are a bit more expensive, and ultimately it is a bit more of a faff to get one poured. So is it really worth it? And that is what I'm hopefully going to answer for you today. This video is going to be separated into 5 different parts. First up, we're going to talk about how much I've actually used the thing, what are its kind of oddities and quirks that you should be aware of, answering whether it really is any better than your standard Guinness Draught can, does it really work with any other nitro canned beers, and finally the answer to whether it really is worth it or not. So how much have I used it? Well, I've done some math, and I reckon on average I've used it 3 to 4 times a month since purchasing it, which was about 16 months ago. I think 40 of those were actual Guinness NITROSURGE cans, and the other 10 or 15 or so were actually experimenting with it with other beers. We'll get onto that a little bit later. So I've used it enough, I reckon, for what it costs and the extra costs of the cans and so on. Of course, a lot of my usage of this has been around trying to find interesting videos to make on the subject, so a lot of people won't be doing that. But of course, on the flip side, if I wasn't making beer-based content, then actually I wouldn't be trying so many beers, and actually maybe even used it a little bit more, I reckon. So what are its quirks and oddities? Well, let's start off with the way you actually pour it. And we're going to pour this can right now because I'm getting a bit thirsty. One thing I have learned throughout my year and a bit with the NITROSURGE is that, well, the 2-part pour I think is a bit of a gimmick. I think it does work in the pub setting, and theoretically this is mimicking that, but I've had as good, if not better, results pouring straight up in one shot with the device already on. Normally what you do is you put the NITROSURGE onto the can, pour your normal kind of pub pour up to the top of the hop-ish, and then do the rest of it. But by that time, this is turned off, so you're just effectively straight pouring it out of the can just through the little spout. But I'll be honest, I've not always had great experience with that for some reason. I've seen some people do it fantastically. Maybe it's just my approach, but yes, I've had much more consistent results by just leaving the thing on, so we'll do that right now. I am now worried though that this might not have enough battery. I think it will, I think it's fine, but I have just realised in the entire year of owning it, more than a year, I've never charged it up except for the first time that I got it. So, well, it's definitely got a lot of pours in it, we can say that much for sure. But anyway, it is quite a quick process. I'm not going to talk while I'm doing, you can just watch along. Yeah, the button's not on there, it's on the back. The hot flashes though, that's what I was forgetting. And now, as I say, I'm just going to do a straight up pour. And I've always said, trust the process, it won't go over, but oh, well, there we go. Well, you're about to see if I know what I'm talking about or not, whether this makes a good looking pint. Now then, I know already there is going to be someone in the comments absolutely outraged by the fact that I've said the 2-part pour is a bit of a sham. But in this case, with the NITROSURGE, I truly believe it. And well, the proof there, I reckon, is in the pudding. It's not the biggest domage going, but the tilt test on that is absolutely spot on. And yeah, it looks like a very, very nice pour indeed. So let's give it a go. Cheers. Did I just unintentionally split the G? Well, first time splitting the G. I almost never bother. In fact, I think I've tried twice and failed both times. But there you go. Nice, not bad. Hard to show when it holding it up because it moves it. But anyway, you can see when it's sat down there. But that actually tastes fantastic. These aren't the freshest cans either. These are, they go out at the end of the year. I mean, you know, we're in July now, midway through July, probably end of July by the time this video comes out. They were probably made 7 months ago. So yes, it's not the freshest of fresh pints, but yeah, that is pretty fantastic, I'm not gonna lie. So I have no doubt the 2-pot pour thing is its biggest oddity. I really don't think it's worth doing. By all means, experiment with it, but yeah, well, you've just seen what happened there, and it's a damn good pint on a 1-pot pour. But what are the other weird and wonderful things about it? Well, one thing to note is you really do have to keep this thing clean. Ultimately, it's got beer going through it, which is a live matter, live organisms in beer. Probably less so in a mass-produced beer like Guinness, but even so, there's residual sugars in there, all sorts of stuff that you don't want hanging around and getting mouldy. So flush through with hot water both before and after use. Just something you really need to remember. They do provide you with a little cleaning brush in the box, but yeah, the hot water does most of it. And I do mean hot water, not boiling water, because that would probably do terrible things to the device itself and overheat the electronics and maybe even melt it, so you don't want to do that. But yeah, anyway, instructions are in the booklet, don't take my advice on that. But also, when you take this off, so if you're just sat enjoying yourself, watching some sport, whatever it is at home, and maybe you're lucky enough to have a little mini fridge nearby, you keep your Guinness in there, you don't have to move far from the sofa while you're watching your sports game, and you want a second pour. The second you take this off, and I'm going to prove it now, moving that out of the way, almost always there's a weird spillage situation that occurs with just a little bit of residual beer. It wasn't too bad this time, but you can probably see it kind of collects around the top there a bit, and well, I've had more than one situation where I've ended up with, yeah, throwing Guinness all over a white t-shirt while I'm sat around, so there's something to be aware of. It also does seem to keep a bit in the can. I poured everything out of it, but yeah, there's still a little bit sloshing around in there, so it just, for whatever reason, got caught up in the top of it. But it's not a big deal, really, and that is all you need to know about its oddities. So, is it really better than the standard Guinness Draught cans? Well, I've blind tasted this, and with a 2-pot pour on this, it was about level. I couldn't really tell them apart, if I'm totally honest. However, I do think that with time and refinement and practicing of the pour, and particularly with this 1-pot pour I've got right here, the conditioning is just a load better than your standard Draught can. Now, of course, everything I'm saying here is pretty much anecdotal based on my experience, but one thing I have found, which might help you just understand whether this is something I truly believe or not, is that on more than one occasion, I've wanted some Guinness for something like watching a rugby match on TV, and I've said to my other half, because she was nipping out to the shop, I said, can you grab me some Guinness NITROSURGE cans if they've got them, but look, if not, then normal ones, normal Draught cans are fine. And inevitably, she's always come back with the regular non-NITROSURGE ones because they didn't have any. And that, well, I've always been slightly disappointed. Of course, when she's arrived back, I've gone, all right, fine, whatever. But on pouring them out, I've gone, this would just be so much better through the NITROSURGE. So much so that on a few occasions I've done the pin method, and I've got a whole video about that. Click up there if you want to see it, about using the pin method with the NITROSURGE. And basically what that does is allow you to use non-NITROSURGE cans, but are still nitro flushed cans with this device. And it never quite comes true. It's just not quite as good as the real deal. So my general advice would be, if you want to do it properly. And if you're not going to go out and pay a bit more on the proper NITROSURGE cans, just buy your regular Draught cans and do it the old-fashioned way, because, yeah, you're never quite going to get that proper result. So on that note, does it work with other canned nitro beers? Yes, but it's probably not worth the risk. And my experience has been, and I've reviewed and documented a lot of this, is that you can do it using that pin method and everything else. I've had some fantastic results thinking things like O'Hara's Nitro Stout and O'Hara's Nitro Red Ale came out beautifully. Was it better than the standard? I don't know, because I've not really had enough experience. Now, most other Nitro beers, the only two I can think of offhand available in the UK right now that have the widget in, like the original Guinness draft cans or the original Guinness draft cans, and that Camden Stout that I reviewed a few weeks ago. None of the others bother with it because, let's be honest, it's a bit of a faff in terms of packaging for a smaller brewer to do that. So most of them just come in a taller can with a heavy nitrogen flushing on the top of it. And to be honest, with a lot of those cans, the pin method can work with the NITROSURGE and you end up with a fantastic pint. But for every one that I've had it tastes as good or it tasted better than just pouring out on its own, I've had ones that have been worse and they actually ruin the beer putting it through the NITROSURGE. It's got to be down to differences in the amount of nitrogen, just the makeup of those beers and so on. But yeah, if you're going to buy one of these just to get your kind of, you know, your craft nitro equivalent out through the NITROSURGE and see if you can make it even better, I probably wouldn't bother. So, is it worth it? And would I buy it again? Well, I think it's quite clear that I do like this. I do think it's worth it. I think the price point is really interesting. It's cheap enough that it makes it, for most people, not a massive problem. I'm aware there's a cost of living crisis going on and that might come across a bit grotesque, but 20 quid in the grand scheme of things, when there's beers out there that people are buying frequently at 5, 6, 7, 8 plus pounds a can, you're not many beers in before you get to that 20 something quid. So in that respect, it's relatively cheap. It's only a few beers worth of money. But yes, the cans themselves are a bit more expensive, probably 25 to 50p a can depending on where you buy. And that is not insignificant if you're drinking a large amount of Guinness. But ultimately, if you're drinking so much Guinness that price difference on the cans is significantly affecting you, then maybe there's other problems there. I don't know. But if you like Guinness enough and you like a really good poured pint of Guinness, then absolutely it is worth it. If you're the occasional Guinness drinker and you're buying 4, 8 cans a year, don't bother. Honestly, you're not going to miss it, really. In terms of how good it is compared to your good pub pint, I think I said in my original video that it came across about as well as not a bad pub pint, but like an acceptable one. Like it was just okay. I've spent more time with it now. I'm getting better results. I now think it's as good as a 60 to 75% quality out of a range of 100. If 100 is the best pint of Guinness in the world, you can get a 60 to 75 percentile out of it, but it doesn't happen every time. And to be honest, that is one thing that I missed off my Quirks list, is that actually the cans of NITROSURGE do seem to be a bit inconsistent, whether it's the amount of nitrogen in each one or just the way they've been stored, I don't know. But even 2 out of the same pack have had very different results with pouring them back to back. So I don't know, temperature is a big thing with these. You want them pretty cold to get a nice proper pour on it, but just be aware that if you pour one and you go, well, that's no good, it might just be a bit of a one-off. The majority that I've had have been excellent. There were definitely some worse ones in the earlier days of it, so they may have refined that process a bit. But in general, yes, I absolutely think it is worth buying. And as I say, it is as good as a pretty good pub pint if done correctly with a bit of time and effort. So there you have it. That is my long-term Guinness NITROSURGE review. Have you got one? Are you enjoying it? Are you still using it? Let me know in the comments, please. And if there are any other beers you want me to try this out with, just to find out whether it's really any good on other beers or not, also, please let me know. But that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.